Hey guys, this is Nirpam from the Underwater Photography Guide and Blue Water Photo. Now, before I give this back to Kraken, I just wanted to show you guys the strobe I've been shooting for the last month. This is the Kraken KS160. It's Kraken's newest strobe, and it very much eclipses the old Kraken strobe in the fact that it's just so much better in every way, and I've been very pleased to shoot it. Now, this is a pre-production model, so unfortunately I can't really tell you what the price is going to be, and I know we'll have stock in the next couple of months, but I really wanted to give you guys a preview of what this strobe is and what it can do, because it's pretty incredible. At 160 watt seconds, it can do 600 flashes per charge. The beam angle is pretty dang wide, especially with the diffuser on top. And overall, I've been shooting with it and loving it. In the Pacific Northwest, I've been diving with wolf eels and with anemones and with all kinds of macro subjects, and I've loved the color I've been getting from it and the color temperature. So let me just run through the specs a little bit on this strobe, tell you what I like about it, and tell you maybe some of the drawbacks that I found as well. All right, so going through the specs, let's take a look real quick. So what I have for this strobe is that it's 160 watt seconds of power. That is enough power for wide angle photography in almost any situation, including in shallow, clear water where you need a lot of strobe light to match the powerful sunlight. So overall, I didn't really need any more power than I had. In fact, in the Pacific Northwest, I was often shooting at the lowest power because it was so dark underwater. At the lowest power, you get incredible recycle times, and I've been really enjoying that. So the recycle time, it looks like it is 1.5 seconds at a full power dump. Now, that is very different from what the recycle time is less than full power. When you crank down the strobe power, you can increase your recycle time considerably, and I was able to do that in the Pacific Northwest, and my flashes were instantaneous. And at the end of this video, you'll actually see my recycle time test that I did, my lightning test for the strobe, and you can see just how fast it is. Now, the battery life for the strobe is rated at 400 flashes. I was getting about 600 flashes when I was shooting on my normal dive, and that's mostly because I'm shooting at multiple power levels. I'm shooting at full power, half power, quarter power, and that's more than enough for a day of diving. So all you really need to do is at the end of the day of diving, take this battery pack out, which is a custom lithium-ion battery pack, and you can just plug it right in. It's got a USB-C charging port right there, and once you plug that in and it's all charged up for the day, you just put it right back, and you can go ahead and get diving. So when it comes to the beam from the Kraken KS160, it's a 120 degree beam, which I think is super wide. That's more than enough for most situations, and it's not too much so that you get more backscatter in your photos. So I really like the beam angle. It's got a nice diffuser if you do want to get an even wider beam angle. Let's say you're shooting with one strobe and you want to do wide angle. And the beam temperature is 5,500 degrees Kelvin. I find that a little bit on the cooler side when I was shooting, at least, but I found the colors to be awesome. They were really, really nice and beautiful, and you can see in my macro photos, all the colors popped. It seemed pretty true to life, and I just loved shooting with the strobe overall. I thought the beam was perfect. There were no hot spots. Now, let's talk about what I think might be the biggest downside of the Kraken KS160. It's the weight. So above water, the strobe weighs in at, let's see, I think 1.2 kilos. Underwater, it's about 300 grams. That is a bit on the heavier side. You can see that this strobe is actually a lot smaller than a lot of other 160 watt second strobes. But because of that, it's a little bit denser. So I really recommend having floats when you're shooting with it, as it is fairly heavy. But that said, you can see it's nice and compact, easy to travel with, and it's much more compact than other 160 watt second strobes. If you were to compare strobes, I would say the Kraken KS160 is about a little bit larger than something like the CNC YSD3 or other AA strobes. Hey guys, this is me from the future. I just came back from DEMA, and as you saw, I did have concerns about the weight. Well, those concerns have been alleviated. I talked to the engineers at Kraken about my experiences with the prototype, and they're actually designing some foam that can fit right over the strobe. So you'll be able to just place those onto the strobes and it'll lighten it up underwater. I think that's better than putting foam on the arms because the device itself is going to be lighter. So I'm super stoked about that, and I think that really alleviates any concerns I had with the weight. Now, along with the compact size, you can see that this thing is anodized aluminum. It's very sturdy. You don't have to really worry about banging it up or anything like that. And it'll last on pretty much any time you take it on. I was banging it up pretty good in the Pacific Northwest with a lot of current, and it did a great job. Now let's talk about strobe operation. So you can probably see there is a sync cord port on the strobe, 5-pin sync cords, and a fiber optic port on the strobe as well with a fiber optic adapter. Both work excellently. Now there is no TTL on the strobe, so all you need is a trigger and then you're adjusting the power levels yourself. In order to do that, you just hold the button to turn the strobe on. It's got a nice LED panel that tells you how much battery life you have. And then what you want to do is you want to take the strobe knob, dial it down to 160, and then you can start adjusting it manually, and it'll tell you your power level and how many shots you have left at that power level, which is super, super useful. Finally, there is a nice, a nice modeling light. This is 500 lumens. I used it quite a bit when I was shooting macro, and I even used it as a dive light when I forgot about my dive light. So that is pretty cool as well. And finally, you've got this nice dial here to go through your modes, and that's to switch between the slave mode. The strobe can also do slave triggering as well as the normal manual triggering. Now, if you do want to use the slave mode, you just take off the fiber optic adapter, and now you've got a nice optical sensor, and it worked pretty well. I actually decided to use the slave mode for one of my strobes, and I had it on one side, just going off a slave, being triggered by my strobe on the other side. And it worked great unless the strobe was behind my camera and blocking that light. So guys, that's pretty much it. Unfortunately, that's all I have for you. I don't have a retail price, but I do know we're gonna get these in the next couple months. So stay tuned, enjoy my images, and let's move on to that lightning test, which I did at home. I'm currently at DEMA, so let's transition back to my house, and I'll go through just how fast this strobe is with you guys. Alright guys, so I'm back at home, and I'm just gonna put the Kraken strobes through a quick lightning test. I'm gonna use one strobe right here on the right side, and I am going to, this one's actually pretty close to dead, so I don't want to do a test on a dead battery. Anyway, let's try a flash at full power. We'll check the recycle time. This camera is set to 10 frames per second. So here we go. All right, so that looks like pretty much the listed recycle time, about 1.7 seconds or so. And you know, that's pretty good for full power. Now let's try this strobe at half power. That's insane. All right, so this strobe can keep up with 10 frames per second at half power, which is absolutely insane. If you're a cold water diver, you're in a dark environment, you can shoot pretty much as fast as you want. And then I guess I'm assuming at the lowest power, it easily keeps up with the camera at the lowest power. So these strobes are just incredible for the recycle time, and I'm pretty impressed here.